Tonight, my thoughts most naturally go back to my grandfather, my grandmother, the boy I once knew, and my valley. There is sweet music in the mountains, the rhythmic fall of the woodsman's axe, the mooing of the cows in the pasture, cackling of hens in the barnyard advertising their wares, and in the distance the strident proclamation of a rooster announcing daybreak. There's a chorus of catbirds and wrens and orioles, and I can hear a turtle dove calling to its mate, while down in the valley a meadowlark is singing. In that slough over by the railroad station, a bunch of ridiculously pompous bullfrogs swell themselves to prodigious proportions and give voice to their springtime roundelays. Grandfather, I think of you and your abiding sense of tolerance, and your custom of never speaking ill of anyone, men or nations. And I remember one night at one of our supper-time conversations, you said, well, I think we all appreciate our privileges. It's just that we don't know why we appreciate them. Well, it's great to live in a country where there is equal opportunity for everyone. And we believe in education for all who care about it. That way, there'll be no need for any ruling classes. That was a long speech for you, Grandfather, but I would never have thought of interrupting you. I just knew then and there that I was destined for college. Always remember that night when you met my father, my brother Cecil, and me at the Wallingford Railroad Station. And I reached up and took hold of that giant thumb that felt like a handle. And when you wrapped your fingers around my thumb, I knew then and there I wanted to be near you always. That night, my valley began to make a lasting impression in my life. I'll always remember when Grandmother came into the dining room with that loaf of bread, the likes of which I'd never tasted. And then that pitcher of cream, fresh from the udders of the benevolent old family cow. And then that bowl of blueberries plucked from the branches high on the cliffs of our valley. As I adapted to the ways of life in the valley, I began to realize that we became part and parcel of everything that surrounded us. And that made life easier for us than it might have otherwise. Oh, my friend, Fay Stafford and I made life miserable for you, Grandfather, and for Grandmother, and for the other citizens of the village, but we were just a bunch of mischievous boys, and I remember Grandmother's kitchen like a clock, like the motor of a vehicle, like the beat of a human heart. It lies a bit dim in my memory now, but from it I learned the virtues of sincerity, devotion, love, honor. And I remember, too, the evidences of thrift when I think of the sensitive patches on the old family tablecloth. Our village had many textures. Among them was Obadiah Makepeace. Now, Obadiah was a salesman. He'd sell you anything, whether you wanted it or not. I remember on one occasion he was in hot pursuit of a fleshy French-Canadian woman, a citizen of our town. And the imps of Satan, giving evidence of their partisanship in the situation, some would yell, "Go to it, Angelina," and others would say, "Shake a leg for the love of Mike." In New England, all the young people on Sabbath day had to be little grown-ups. The ecstatic joys were preserved to the other days of the week. I must admit that I used my Sabbaths to plan my campaign for the rest of the week. The Reverend Gamaliel Dillingham must have been a very holy man, considering the length of his prayers and his sermons. In his prayers, he'd begin with the President of the United States and work his way down through the federal and state registers, throw in a king or a queen now and again. If anyone was left out of his prayers, it was through no fault of his, and the Lord must have made up for it somehow. Danny Foley used to say, why in the name of heaven don't the Lord just say, God bless them all, red, black, green, and yellow, and let it go at that? As I sat between my grandparents in the family pew on the Sabbath day, my eyes more often went to the window and the little birds that sat outside the windows where they made love. Little pagans were they. Grandfather, of all my many sins, the one I regret the most was the time I struck my dear brother. It was a hot summer afternoon, and in a fit of anger, I shot my fist through the brim of his straw hat and hit him square in the face. He was hurt, humiliated. He had tears in his eyes. But he taught me the greatest lesson. He didn't strike back. I'd have given all my possessions to pull back that cruel blow.